Domestic violence, breaking the silence. Domestic abuse is more than physical. It's also mental abuse that can include name-calling, isolation, and manipulation. Domestic violence is turning some homes into crime scenes. In Brooklyn Park, for example, through August of this year, there were 349 domestic assault reports. Some are calling the issue a public health crisis. Going after abusers and protecting victims is a 24-hour job. There are 2 detectives in the Brooklyn Park Police Department whose primary job is to work on domestic violence cases. We talked with one detective who says one case is one too many.
We see it every day, and you almost become callous to all of the heinous assaults and just how mean people can be to one another out here.
Detective Shane Husaric has been on the Brooklyn Park Police Department for 14 years. It's his job to gather evidence for cases. The work is demanding and at times heartbreaking.
As of today's date, I've got 3 strangulations and 9 other assaults.
Husaric alone handles about 250 to 300 domestic abuse cases per year.
Here's a victim that came up to Brooklyn Park and reported that she was assaulted. Here's a case with a lady that got bit in the leg and she was assaulted in her car while they were driving home. Here's a strangulation case, which sad to say, but I would say a high percentage of our cases are strangulation cases.
Detective Husaric says he gets many calls from victims who are repeatedly abused.
He just assaulted me again today. Like, I can't continue putting up with this bad behavior. Like, I might end up dead somewhere.
Right.
He was just talking about killing me and everything. And I had to call the police again because he punched me in my chest.
Is there a time where I can meet with you tomorrow?
Officers who are called out on domestic abuse calls have to respond quickly. They also have to be gentle with victims and children who are at the scene.
We need to get these victims in. We need to get them out of the house. It's dangerous for them to be in the house.
Husaric worries most about people who are too afraid to pick up the phone and call.
You see a lot of this going on, your heart goes out to these people, and especially the ones that aren't calling in.
Last year, the detectives started a program to make it easier for victims to reach out to police.
They can just swing in and see me, or they can leave a note while they're paying their rent to say, hey, have the officer call me.
He set up shop at several different apartment rental offices in the city.
And the victims that are being controlled can say, hey, I just need to go to the office and talk to the manager.
Protecting the public and giving power back to victims.
When people call 911, the officers come in and take over the scene and take control from the victim. And the victim's ultimately the one that knows what's best for her or him.
Protecting victims of domestic abuse and going after abusers is a top priority in Brooklyn Center. In 2018, police officers responded to nearly 2,500 domestic-related calls for service. Police also made nearly 200 domestic violence-related arrests.
In our city, we have seen a decrease since we put our DART program in place, especially with our repeat calls.
In 2011, the Brooklyn Center Police Department formed its Domestic Abuse Response Team, also known as DART, to address issues in the community. DART officers work with victims and their families to provide safety planning and referrals. They also make sure victims understand their rights. Officer Sarah Fry helped to start the program.
We all kind of worked collectively to bring this to our administration so that we could work with the victims after an incident to, do whatever we could to help them get the strength that they needed and, just to feel safe.
And because Brooklyn Center is so diverse, there are resources available for Hispanic and Latino communities. People often ask, why do victims stay? Advocates with Cornerstone say it's not always easy for people to leave. The group is helping to rebuild and restore the lives of domestic abuse victims.
It isn't about do they leave, it's about do they stay safe?
A majority of domestic abuse victims are women with children, and the more children you have, the more challenging it can be to find shelter if you decide to leave.
Shelter is always an option. One of the issues is going to be whether or not there's enough bed space for the size of your family.
While it's difficult, it's not impossible to find shelters for families.
One of Cornerstone's program, Day One, has a crisis line that people can call when they're in need of shelter, and we can locate shelter space anywhere within the state.
The advocacy group helps survivors of abuse to build a foundation so they can stand on their own 2 feet.
We have community services advocates who offer financial literacy classes and the ability to set a budget and work on your credit report and look for housing.
Counselors also walk people through the criminal and civil justice system.
Criminal no contact orders, that's something that the criminal justice system puts in place for your safety. But in order for protection, you have to initiate that and follow through and go out and get that. So that can be very frightening for somebody who's fearing for their life.
Cornerstone advocates say it's important for victims to know that they're not alone. There are people and organizations who care and are willing to help.
I have seen people over the course of years move forward with their lives and be able to gain a violence and abuse-free life.
Cornerstone has offices in the Northwest Family Center in Brooklyn Center. They also provide support at Osseo High School, Brooklyn Center Middle and High School STEAM, and Park Center High School. If you're in need of help or you know someone who needs help, here's a list of resources. You'll also find them on our website, ccxmedia.org.